Hey, read through the word. Today is December 19th, and today's lesson is called Types and Shadows. We are in the book of Hebrews. I don't mention Hebrews as much as I do Romans, but Hebrews is another that I have taught a lot, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But I love every book of the Bible, so it's hard, but my goodness, it's just so good. So the verses I am picking out for my part of today's lesson are Hebrews 9 verses 23 through 28, and it says, "That is why the tabernacle and everything in it, which were copies of things in heaven, and had to be purified by the blood of animals, but the real things in heaven had been purified with far better sacrifices than the blood of animals. For Christ did not enter into a holy place made with human hands, which was only a copy of the true one in heaven. He entered into heaven itself to appear now before God on our behalf. And he did not enter heaven to offer himself again and again, like the high priest here on the earth who enters the most holy place year after year with the blood of an animal. If that had been necessary, Christ would have to die again and again, ever since the world began. But now, once for all time, he has appeared at the end of the age to remove sin by his own death as a sacrifice. And just as each person is destined to die once, and after that comes the judgment, so also Christ was offered once for all time as a sacrifice to take away the sins of many people. He will come again, not to deal with our sins, but to bring salvation to all who are eagerly waiting for him." Okay, so here we are in the book of Hebrews. And you thought Romans was deep. Welcome to Hebrews. Hebrews is I would say every book of the Bible is like that. I don't know. We just got through with the book of James, and James was, the last time I talked to you, James is an easier read because remember it was deed and not doctrine. Hebrews is doctrine heavy, and Old Testament heavy. You cannot understand Hebrews without knowing the Old Testament. But thankfully here at Read Through the Word, we read through the Old Testament together. And we will talk about some things here, but Hebrews is one of those books you will have to read and read and read and read and read and read again and again and again to understand, because there is so much depth and beauty here that you can't get it in one sitting, especially at the rate we read. You're going through some things pretty quickly, and it probably is a little bit confusing unless you've got the book of Leviticus memorized. And so that it really is a lot of tabernacle and Levitical law reliance. So I'm going to explain that, and I want to explain this whole idea of type and shadow, and I want to explain some about Hebrews, and we will go more in depth in Hebrews, a specific chapter, if there's my word again, tomorrow. But today, like always, I am looking at Hebrews. Now, we do not know who the author of Hebrews, who the author of Hebrews is or was. Many think it's Paul. We had this great discussion at the Determined Conference last year about sitting at a table who we thought could do it, who we thought it was. And so it was very interesting. But we do know that the author of Hebrews is writing to a group of Hebrew Christians, those who had formerly been Jews, or are now Christians, who most at the beginning were. And this idea of explaining to them the supremacy of Christ. When you look at the book of Hebrews, now here in New Living, I think it uses the word better. Depending on the translation of the Bible you're using, if you read all of Hebrews, find what word it is and let me know. Let me know in the comments today. Let me know what translation, because I know a lot of you will read out of this, but you look into different translations to see. I'm one of those. I tell you to do it, to look at new wording. That's why New Livings helped me a lot, because it wasn't one that I was using a lot of until I started here. And it's helped me open my eyes to different wording and understand the original meaning a little bit better. So I want you to find the word. So you're going to find that Christ is better, Christ is greater, Christ is superior. The Message says it this way, that the Christ is the centerpiece of all that we believe. That Hebrews has also been called the fifth gospel. My best friend and I, goodness gracious, I can't remember how long ago it's been now. We taught a class together. We like to teach together. We play off of each other because we're alike, but we're very different, much like Wendy and I. And so it's fun to teach with somebody who's different, that we get different things out of. So I always like that. But we taught a class called the Gospel of Hebrews because of this. Because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John describe to us the ministry of Jesus here on earth. Of what he did, what he preached, the miracles, everything he did. But Hebrews describes Christ's current ministry in heaven at God's right hand. It tells us, what is Jesus doing right now? Hebrews explains it. Hebrews explains to us the difference between Christ as our Savior and Christ as our great high priest. Because what the author of Hebrews is describing to people is that there is a group of Hebrew believers, I have to talk with both hands, the group of Hebrew believers who are thinking they've lost something. They lost everything by accepting Christ, because they lost the temple. They lost sacrifices, priests. Everything they knew was bound in the old covenant, and they feel like, well, what about all of that? Which Romans covers a lot of that as well. But what Hebrews does is Hebrews explains that the altar, the priests, and the sacrifices were only types and shadows. It was a foreshadowing. Jesus was, remember, as we always say, from the very beginning in Genesis, there is no plan B. This is plan A. Jesus is plan A. And so the sacrifices, the priest, the tabernacle, the temple, everything was just a foreshadowing of Jesus. And then what Hebrews does is Hebrews takes it and explains it. Well, this is what you thought. You thought Moses was great, but Jesus is better. Now, this is what you understood about the sacrifice. But Jesus is better. This is what you understood about the tabernacle, the temple. But Jesus is better. You didn't lose anything. Those were only pictures to help you understand what Jesus is doing, because this is when you need to go back to read the end of the book of Exodus. Actually, let's go ahead and do it here. This is fun. Okay, so 4 places in the Bible. This is not, I'll have to put it in your notes because this is off the top of my head right now. Okay, 4 places in the Bible that connect this idea. You're going to see it in Genesis, in the Garden of Eden. You will see it again in the tabernacle. You'll see it right here in Hebrews as is explained to us. Then you'll see it again at the end of the book of Revelation as you see the new Jerusalem come down. New heaven, new earth. Everything comes here. So all of this is a type and shadow that connect. The Bible, everything God starts in Genesis, he completes at the consummation of everything in the book of Revelation. But this whole story, remember we were talking about the meta-narrative of the Bible, how everything connects. And this is what Hebrews explains to us. Hebrews explains to us that it was all about Jesus all along. It was all about him. I've told you every time we talk, it's all about Jesus. It's all about the King. We're celebrating the remembrance of the incarnation of Christ. And during this time period right now. But this is what it's all about. Everything here in the book of Hebrews explaining to the Hebrew believers, explaining to us as Christians that all of this in the Old Testament you don't not read. Okay, I think there's a double negative in there. We read, let's do it this way. We read the Old Testament. We don't ignore it because this is why. This explains to us that Jesus is everything. But now, here's it, the types and the shadows are gone because the substance has come. Why don't we have sacrifices? Why don't we have all of that anymore? Because it was just a picture so we would understand what Jesus was doing for us. Because that's what you see in those 4 places in the Bible is you see when you get the tabernacle and all, if you look into the detail and everything, it's all describing, everything is to picture the Garden of Eden. And this goes into a little bit of the type and shadow. And you'll see those very things described again in Revelation. You'll see the trees and the flowers and all but the inside of the tabernacle was to show us this because it all is showing us what is occurring in heaven right now. It's not just a story. It's really real. This is God's way of teaching us and showing us the things that were happening in the Garden of Eden, the things that are happening in the heavens, and the things that we will see in the future in all eternity. It is the love of God shown to us. That this is his plan for us, his people, to dwell with him. And how that is possible is explained to us in the book of Hebrews. Here's the thing. Jesus is on every page in the book of Hebrews. Romans is doctrine. The letters explain to us the living out of our faith, which we've talked about. But Hebrews is all Jesus. Every bit of it shows us how he's better. How it has all been about him all along. And explaining to the Hebrew believers that. And explaining to us now. That's what that meant. We can never understand the Old Testament without the New. Or the New without the Old. We need both. Which is what we do here at Read Through the Word. So, my challenge to you in reading the book of Hebrews is read it. Don't give up. It's not going to be your first time, and it's not going to be it might be your first time, but it won't be your last. And we will continue to go through this book as we read through the Word and we make these connections. I hope that you're seeing as we are winding down our year and getting ready to start again January 1st in the book of Genesis, that you're starting to make a bunch of connections without the whole counsel of God. That you're seeing, because I told you last week that at this point when you get into the Bible, it should start sounding very repetitive. Not that I'm repeating. God's repeating his message to us that we get it. Because by the time we get to the book of Revelation, he wants us to understand it really does all matter. And so, keep reading in the book of Hebrews and let me know what your translation is saying. Better, greater, or superior. What word you're coming up with it. So, we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.